Hey, Eric.
Hey, John.
Welcome to Mostly Security. Little bit late this week due to the 4th of July holiday.
Yeah, how was your 4th of July?
Awesome. I have two boys, and they are 13 and 11, and so, Oregon doesn't like fireworks, so we went up camping and
In Washington,
in Washington, yes,
where they like fireworks.
where fireworks are legal. And so, yeah, that was good. Although, oh my gosh, a lot of other people must have done that too, because it took 3.5 hours to drive back today, which should normally have taken about 2, maybe a little over 2. But you know what? It's all good. It's all good. How about you?
Great 4th of July. Great is relative, of course. I spent most of the 4th of July, the morning of the 4th of July, actually working on some stuff. But then in the afternoon, we started fixing our basement. We're trying to clean up our basement.
Oh,
For some minor remodeling down in the basement that we're looking at doing, and then had a barbecue. It rained on us, and did some fireworks. It had stopped raining just in time for fireworks. So,
that's cool.
welcome to
Oh,
Oregon.
that's awesome. Welcome to Oregon. Right. Well, it doesn't rain much after the 4th, hypothetically.
Yes.
That's the rumor.
That's what I've heard.
Hey, before we actually get into any sort of real topics, I did have one personal bit of follow up. Remember,
Yeah.
I told you I was whining about my bees last week.
Oh yeah.
I think I told you I was going to call up my bee mentor and borrow some comb from him,
And
which I did. On Saturday. I threw a couple of frames of already drawn out comb in each of the hives, and then yesterday morning, so 4th of July morning, before I hit the road to drive up to Washington, I had to peek. So I peeked, and in my hive that's totally booming, not only have they filled one of the frames, I just pulled out one of the frames, but they filled it with nectar, and then I could see, while I had the frame out, I could see on both sides, and they're totally building comb where they hadn't done anything for 3 weeks. So I think that my psychological manipulation of the bees was successful. They seem to be on program now. So
all right.
I'm going on vacation next week, and I wanted to get that all figured out before I left, so that they could, be working while I was gone. I like
Nice.
parallel processing. I need them to be,
That's right.
my hyper threads. Anyway.
All right. Well, cool. Well, I suppose
Yes.
then, of course, we should mention the other follow-up, a little bit of fun follow-up. Hey, Oregon State won the College World Series.
I did see that, although I didn't get to see the game.
Oh, it was a great game.
Yeah, I actually looked. I was trying to figure out how I could watch it, but I would either have had to sign up for a 7-day trial of
Right.
ESPN Now or something like that. Or, what's that other streaming service that you have?
Sling TV.
Sling. Thank you.
Yeah,
I couldn't
yeah.
remember Sling. Yeah. So, because no ESPN, I'm a cable cutter for years, and I don't miss it most of the time.
Except for the occasional game.
Says the guy who was trying to figure out, is there any way I could watch this thing for free?
Right.
Nope. Because Oregon State.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. They're going to be fun to watch for the next couple of years. Well, I think jumping into maybe a little bit of technical follow-up, you heard about the
I did.
Gen 2
I read that.
security issue. It happened roughly about the same time we recorded last week, or a couple days before we recorded last week. They've basically, what had happened was someone had taken control of an admin account for the Gen 2 GitHub group. And so they were able to do obnoxious things to the Gen 2 GitHub. And so Gen 2 has now published a complete incident report, how everything happened. And that's what we'll throw in there. It looks like, for the most part, whoever this was just trying to be obnoxious and malicious. They did things like putting in an RM-RF in various scripts and whatnot, which would have been not fun if you had stumbled across that as part of that. But this was the GitHub repos were just a mirror of their repos they host internally. So there wasn't a whole lot of damage, but they seem to have fixed that now.
Was there any indication of how the admin account was compromised? We did talk a little bit about insiders and phishing last week, and so chances are no two-factor auth. I don't know if that's the case, but odds are.
Right, they didn't. So what they say is evidence collected suggests a password scheme where disclosure on one site made it easy to guess passwords for unrelated web
password
pages.
Reuse or similarities. Use a password manager.
Yeah,
right?
Something along those lines. So yeah, it does kind of tie back to even the most careful of organizations can have bad things happen, whether it was an insider or not, you don't know. But people that were dependent on Gen 2, I'm assuming it's Gen 2 and not Gen 2. Gen 2
Was that
Linux,
a GIF comment? Sorry.
Right. Could potentially have had bad things happen to them. So it's a persistent threat, we'll call it, that got to stay vigilant of the projects you use and what's going on around them on the outside. So anyways, we'll link to that. It's a nice little write-up on the incident summary and what happened, down to dates and times and...
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I read the first half a page of that, but I didn't realize they had the full timeline down below. Oh, that's very nice. Yep. I notice in there the action item: sponsor potential for hardware-based two-factor auth for Gen 2 devs. Might be, review two-factor auth requirements for GitHub org. That was presumably implemented relatively quickly and probably easily. Push a button. I'm sure there's just a setting in the GitHub repo configuration for requiring it.
Anyways,
all right. How about topic? What you got for me this week?
So I guess this week maybe I have avoided talking about cryptocurrencies for a while.
That's okay. It's okay. You can talk about
just
them
because
now.
it's easy.
It's good. Oh, because there's so many security issues. It's a target-rich environment.
Yes, very much so. And I guess I suppose I don't want to pick on any necessarily in particular, but they seem to be in general, and there's hundreds of them, right? I think there's more. Some are more popular than others, and I'm assuming that the people that run these things are well-intentioned, smart, people, but there sure seems to be a lack of understanding of how massively complex systems can function or do function. And, the only requirement seems to be having taken a course in cryptocurrencies or having owned Bitcoin, or something like that.
I don't know that I'll go totally. I mean, I do like to presume good intent, but I mean, it's a gold rush, sort of mentality at the moment. Cryptocurrencies being, a possibility, and the notion that there's no clear winner. Obviously, there's a couple of big ones like Bitcoin and Ethereum are, I believe, the two largest. But it's the massive opportunity is there, but I'll also say it doesn't help that for Ethereum's smart contract template or tutorial, it's, hey, create your own cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah. Well, and you have things like there's one which, and these are $1 billion, and I'll get to that point in a second, but These are billion-dollar entities that are doing things like writing their own hashing functions that are broken. And IOTA or IOTA, for example, you can Google IOTA and kind of their problems with just basic software engineering, it seems like.
Yeah.
And another one, the other big selling point for a lot of these blockchains is, hey, we're all really decentralized, and nobody owns any one thing. And then you have another big one, which is called EOS, which is supposed to be or thought of as the Ethereum killer because they're doing distributed proof of stake distributed proof of stake or distributed proof of work. It's going to bug me now because I'm saying that wrong, but it doesn't matter. You discover that actually under the covers, they own who gets a say in what goes on the blockchain. So they're not decentralized. They're actually centralized. And there's a whole lot. I mean, you can Google any one of these cryptocurrencies and find a lot of equally smart people telling you why there's something wrong with them. So unless you are a gambler or are smart enough to understand the risk and dig into this stuff yourself, please avoid cryptocurrencies like the plague.
I'm not sure there's a smart enough to understand yourself. I mean, you got to go back to the IOTA hash thing for a second, because, I feel like sometimes there's a lot of stuff that you and I probably take for granted, having been in the security industry for so long, but, I can imagine people thinking, oh, I know what a hash, just looking at a hash and a definition of a hash and thinking, oh, it's a one-way mangling the data in one direction so that it's unique. But there is an enormous amount of math that goes behind having a hash that isn't trivially busted, or
right.
Where somebody else can control where the hashing functions together. MD5 was used for years, but has been shown to be broken. Was that early 2000s, I want to say, was when the first early indications were. I'm probably misremembering that, but so the SHA series were the successors to that. But even now, SHA 1 is sort of moving out in favor of SHA 256. But the amount of math that goes into having a hash function that is doesn't leak information and that is very hard to find collisions for is not something that anyone should do. And one of the maxims of security is that you shouldn't write your own cryptography, right? And I've encountered custom written encryption algorithms numerous times in my career, and I cannot remember a single one that I would say I'm really glad that you wrote that yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure I had to write one for school at something just to show I understood the mechanics, but I didn't release that and go use that. Anyways.
Yeah.
So I guess then to jump to my other point, which I just have not been able to figure out. If you look at cryptocurrency market is in the billions of dollars, right? What I can't find answers on is how much of that cryptocurrency is new money, dollars or euros or government-backed currencies that have been turned into that versus how much of that is just based on the increased value.
Rampant speculation.
Right? Yeah. Because to me, in my mental model of this is most of these new cryptocurrencies you buy with Bitcoin or Ethereum, right? Or you get in with Bitcoin or Ethereum. Now, what percentage of that Bitcoin or Ethereum that people have been using to buy these, 1,000 plus other tokens or cryptocurrencies came from I converted it and I went to Coinbase or something else? Is it 50%, 80%, 20%? To me, it feels like it's probably on the lower end. And so, frankly, the whole cryptocurrency market just feels like
House of cards,
an inflated house of cards. Yeah. That's just what it feels like. Maybe, it is 80% of the new money that's coming in is coming from, government-backed currencies and turning it into that because people are buying into the vision and that's what's driving it up. But the people who maybe have, thousands of Bitcoin that they were sitting on from 2009 or 2010 when they started just goofing around with it, have just kind of started spreading the wealth out there because it's essentially free for them. I don't know. Yeah. It just feels like there's it feels like a bubble of some sorts, and I can't find any hard data on that. Right? It's like if I were to say, "Hey, John, I like that cup on your desk. I will give you $1 million for that cup." Right?
I would take $1 million for this cup.
I will give you that $1 million, but then the deal goes, you need to pay me $1 million for the pen on my desk. So we just exchanged $1 million. We're now millionaires, but there's no actual value. It's just made up, right? Maybe that's a really horrible analogy, but that's what the cryptocurrency market feels like to me. Anyways.
So yeah.
Stay out of it unless you're a gambler.
The only cryptocurrency I still own is that $5 you gave me, like, a year and a half ago now at this point, which is, I think, worth $20 or something. And I forget if I ever bought you Bitcoin lunch for that or not, but it's funny.
I'm just going to keep saying no every time you bring that up.
Okay.
That you forgot to buy me lunch. I'm gonna see if I can get 5 or 6 lunches.
It's like a cryptocurrency market. It's okay. Oh, yeah, it's crazy.
All right. Anyways, that's just my little mini rant on cryptocurrencies and where they're at, and I would love to see data on how much actual money versus how much is just a shell game.
Well, hold on before we leave that topic. I didn't have an article link ready, but. One of the problems that you and I have both talked about a couple of times is, the instantiation problem with using blockchain in general, not just cryptocurrencies, for physical things. At the end of the day, if you're going to use the blockchain to track tomatoes or whatever the heck it is that you're going to try and do, I think there's that IBM commercial, right? Something along those lines.
Yeah,
but
farm to table,
farm to block to block to block to block to table. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, though, somebody who's doing the initial verification that yes, I watched John load 10 cases of well-formed tomatoes on the back of the truck, and sign that first. Right, there's gotta be some unit of trust for the instantiation or initiation of one of these things. Okay, you can track it from there, but
I can track the barcode that's on the outside of the box from place to place to place.
Right, but
that doesn't validate or verify the contents of the box at all.
Exactly. I think the same analogy holds whether it's even a physical good that doesn't decay. Like a tomato or something like that. But, how do you verify that, you're buying a tenth of a timeshare or whatever the heck it is that you're trying to buy, that, there is actually something on the other end of that. And the thing is that, in our lives, we've imbued trust in organizations that help ensure that things are quote unquote real. And then we've developed constructs to help us, things like insurance, when they're not. So that's why there's title insurance on, when you go up and buy a house, you pay your
Right.
$1,000 or whatever it is for the rights, and what the title company does is take all of that $1,000 that everybody's paying and does the title search, and is a confident enough, and knows, through some amortization scheduler, or what's the word for the actuarial? Thank you. Sorry. Actuarial schedule.
Yep.
They know, how often, an easement was actually recorded and wasn't here, and, will cause, and so that's the whole basis of insurance is, you only paid $1,000, but, all the people that paid that, they're making the difference. But those social constructs help us, trust the system, even if we don't necessarily trust the other participant in the transaction.
And I guess part of that too is, what is it about the blockchain that makes it that much better or significantly better a technology to leverage than stuff we've been doing for years?
Just PKI.
Once you have to trust somebody outside the system already,
yeah,
you're just shifting trust around, by saying, because all the key points that hey, blockchains are trustless, and you don't everybody can validate that things happen, and all the key pieces of a blockchain that people love to tout as the reasons why kind of break down when you don't trust that thing that goes, when you still have to trust somebody at some point. Right. on insertion, on when I take the box to FedEx and say, I'm going to mail this to John, and FedEx says, we're going to track that on the blockchain. Why is that any different?
Right.
Than whatever systems they have today? Or not, I know why it's different. Why is it better or more efficient or more important?
Right.
Than what existed? Anyways, I'm not trying to be a downer on blockchain. I do think there's a lot of interesting problems it can solve. But as you said earlier, it's gold rush days, and it solves every problem. And the answer there is no, it maybe solves 5% of the problems we're talking about. So
yeah.
Let's get to those.
That's a great lead into my topic, honestly.
Sweet. Awesome.
I don't think you intended that, but yeah. You know what's going to solve every problem in the world today?
Okay. Machine learning.
Machine learning. That's right.
I cheated. I looked at the notes.
Oh, well, hey, there you go. That's okay. But it is, right? Machine learning, artificial intelligence, machine learning. It's replacing everything. Yeah. So the article that I most enjoyed reading this week was one by Ben Evans, or Benedict Evans. And he had it was kind of not even a primer, but a very easy to read article about, what is machine learning, how to think about machine learning. And I love this because it's not like his take on it, of course, is not security specific in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think that, I don't think it's always useful to think about a technology first in terms of security, but just as the technology itself, and then maybe think of how it can be applied, and what are the what are the unique things from our perspective about the security industry that it brings to things like machine learning. But I really liked this article.
Well, I did not read it, so you're going to have to go with this one because
it's okay. No, we'll just talk a little bit about it. I'll tell you some of my favorite bits, I guess. But one of the things I pulled out just a couple quotes about this. One of them was, eventually pretty much everything will have ML somewhere inside it, and no one will care. So, I mean, it's his analogy. He used an analogy earlier in the article about automation, and as machines are getting smarter and smarter in the in the early 20th century, are we going to have like a robot that comes and does our laundry for you? No, not like a general purpose robot, but you know what you are going to have is a washing machine, right? Something that can automate, every single step of the washing process. And, for all intents and purposes, from, our perspective in 2018, we don't need to take clothes in a big bucket and scrub them against I guess they called them washboards. Mm-hmm. That's why we call roads washboards these days. A bumpy road is the closest I've been to a washboard, maybe in my life. But it's in the analogy to the cryptocurrencies, it's ML is kind of broken through some level of cognitive threshold that. It's on the tongue of everybody, tip of everyone's tongue, and we're going to ML this. AI is going to help with this. It's going to be driving and everything else, but it's not interesting, or it's not interesting to think, or it's not useful maybe to think of it as it's going to be magical, but more of like what problems can you really solve, and then if you want to try and think ahead, like how can you ask questions that ML will answer in ways that we couldn't answer before, or taking how we could answer the problem before in, and magnifying it or multiplying how quickly you can do it, that kind of thing. So one of the other examples he had in here was a kind of a purpose-built ASIC that was used, special chip that is built for a single purpose that is used in a car assembly line to detect whether or not there's a wrinkle in the fabric. And, that's something that you couldn't really have automated before, but with some of the image recognition advances that have happened in ML in the last 5 years, you can take a picture of the seat and having trained a model to recognize wrinkles, now there was a job that a human previously had to look at and do that now a machine could do, and it's something that you couldn't have really done previously. So I really liked how he approached this in terms of here's the three things that he said in here that can help you think about what machine learning can do. So the first was that machine learning can help deliver results for questions that you're already asking and about data that you have. So optimization techniques, analytics and ways. If you already know the question and you know the data that you're gathering to answer the question, maybe you could use ML to build a model that can recognize it and do it faster, because you have domain expertise. And in fact, I've talked to a lot of data scientists at least, and one of the things they're always looking for is they've got the math and they're looking for the domain experts to help with whether things make sense. Because one of the problems,
right,
at least with practical application of machine learning, is you still need a human there during the training and everything else to say, hey, it says the sky is purple, and does that make any sense to you? And the domain expert's like, no, anyway, it's a
right,
interesting thing. So the second thing that he says is asking new questions for data you have. And the example he did is now that there's been, also advances in textual representations and the emotions being expressed in a bit of text. So in fact, Amazon, in one of their machine learning demos, at least a couple years ago, I did one of their tutorials playing around with, I don't even remember.
SageMaker.
I think it predated SageMaker, but
Mm.
anyway, they had a Python example that would try to get the whether what was it? Oh, it was doing tweets. So it was, is this tweet angry, sad, just bucketing the tweets into a couple of large categories for things like support emails, support. If you're following a really heavy feed, you might want to be able to prioritize things to go to your human operators based on, level of intense emotion. So if somebody's really frustrated, somebody's really happy, maybe you want to send those to two different places. And if anyway, so
Right.
that that's something that you couldn't have done before. And then anyway, his final thing was that there are types of data that we couldn't really analyze with machines before, but that is becoming possible at the moment, and ML helps allow that. So things like audio, images, and video are far more tractable problems to work with than they were previously. And I think that's obviously a combination of advances in things like speech to text, advances in massively parallel GPUs, and the use of those GPUs in things like ML algorithms, etc. But those are really I love this article. I thought it was really good.
I will absolutely have to read that.
Yeah. But here's my the analogy that I think I loved the most. So it was you know what a ML is like? It's like having a 10-year-old. So you should think about it as you can automate things with machine learning that you could ask a 10-year-old to do. So, 5 years ago, his example is 5 years ago, if you gave a computer a pile of photos, it could sort them by size, but that's pretty much it. But if you gave them to a 10-year-old 5 years ago, they could maybe say, this picture has a man in it, this picture has a woman in it, this picture has a dog in it, this picture has a horse in it, that kind of stuff. But maybe a 15-year-old could actually look at it and say, oh, of all these 10 photos, this is the one that's most interesting for whatever reason. And, the thing is that sometimes what's unique is, something that it would, maybe take a little bit more cognition to recognize. So, today we can match that 10-year-old pretty easily, right? I mean, but the thing with being able to do something with a 10-year-old, and the reason why ML is interesting, even if it's like, just asking things that you could do with the 10-year-old is, well, what if you had, say, a billion 10-year-olds, right? Right. So you have a billion 10-year-olds to answer basic questions that are, super easy from a human cognition standpoint, but very hard for a machine. I love that. I love that analogy.
Well, I tell you, the 10-year-old in the Google Photos app today asked me if I wanted to share some photos with my daughter, and it was because she was in those. It was a bunch of 4th of July pictures, and Google Photos said, hey, would you like to create an album out of this set of photos and share them with, and gave my daughter's name. Like, that's slightly creepy, but okay. I gotcha.
Yes, I would. And
don't do that again.
Please. Yeah. Well, the thing is Apple's doing that on your device, which is why your phone burns up. Google's doing that in the cloud.
Yep.
Yeah. So, if bring this topic back to security for a little bit, since this is, I guess, technically a security podcast.
It's just mostly security.
Oh,
John.
That's true. It's only mostly security. Okay.
It's in the name, bud.
Well, the interesting thing, the unique thing, I guess, for me with regard to machine learning in things like security is we do have a lot of data. We do have a number of questions Not many of them are today answerable by a 10-year-old, but maybe by a 15-year-old. So that's one of the reasons why, the analogies there, and why it's a such a hot topic today. Because ML's all over the security industry, and we're using it. And to be honest, it's one of the funny things is that it's been classification wise, it's been in use for years and years. But it's still not reliable enough in isolation to trust. It's maybe a good analogy there would be like self-driving cars. Of yes, so long as you're on a freeway that it really knows, and it's no accidents have happened, or nothing, no constructions on the road that's unexpected and just started last night, so it doesn't, it hasn't adapted to, maybe you're okay. And
Right.
I've had maybe you can use it to go 100 miles without touching the wheel.
Yeah.
But it's not the majority of the cases at the moment.
Right. I think between the two hot topics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, or blockchain, as a security industry, we picked the right one to hang out with.
Oh, yes.
I think the security industry has largely just skipped the whole blockchain thing, which I suppose in and of itself probably ought to tell you something.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, it's because we've been using certificates for a long time and signing, and I think we could probably pull somebody out of the halls and ask them to explain PKI to us, public key infrastructure, and we stand a very good chance of getting to a whiteboard and having a nice description unfold. That's not the average out across the world. So,
well, cool. I will definitely have to read that article. I am not anywhere close to being as schooled up on machine learning as I probably ought to be at this point. So
it's interesting. There's sure a lot of good tutorials at the moment. So it's a great time to play around with it. And Amazon has got some great tools too. I gotta say I've read that Azure has too, but I haven't played around with anything from Azure. I'm still an Amazon dude.
All right, cool. Well, should we jump to something fun?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Oh, actually, I know what yours is, so I'll jump in mine first.
Okay.
In a second attempt.
Not sure.
I didn't even say your name. Did it come through the mic?
I heard it. I don't know if it'll come through on the recording. Somebody just triggered. Was that Amazon? I couldn't actually
That was
tell
the
from
Amazon cylinder,
voice.
yeah.
It's
Anyways.
recording your conversation. It'll send it to your friend.
Hey, a new way for podcast distribution.
Yes, accidental. Sorry. All right. Something fun.
In an effort to actually do something fun and not just rehash something, Instagram, despite my, what's the right word, smug hoity-toityness about about having deleted Facebook a while ago, I still use Instagram quite heavily, also owned by Facebook as well as WhatsApp. So anyways, an Instagram account to go check out and follow, the Oregon Zoo. If you like zoos, if you like animals, they do a fabulous job of doing short little video clips. And now that their Instagram has Instagram TV, which is a lot of fun as well. It's just basically Instagram videos, but in longer form.
Okay.
And the Oregon Zoo does things like they take goats and introduce goats to the lions. And they tell you what, there's a glass pane between them, right? And they tell you why, and they kind of give you the background. Anyways, if you're on Instagram, go check out the Oregon Zoo. I'm sure there are other zoos that do it as well, but hey, I'm a homer. The Oregon Zoo Instagram feed is awesome. So
That is cool. Well, yeah, I do like me some goats. I am just looking at their Instagram.
If you like animals, like zoos, like learning about animals, go check out the Oregon Zoo Instagram account.
That is
Great
definitely something fun. Well, I kind of spoiled a little bit of my something fun this morning, early in the show, of talking about going up to Washington, because that's definitely my something fun last night was letting off fireworks. Because oh man, we went to Long Beach, Washington, which has a great display. To be honest, you don't actually have to spend any money, because you can just go sit on the beach and watch everybody else let off all their fireworks. And
Right.
you would think that it's 2 hours of a I don't know. It's a 2 hour extravaganza of explosions and flashes and light and there have got to be some people there that are willing to spend more money for a couple minutes of explosions than I am, for sure. I mean, there were some displays that went on for 10 or 15 minutes, like continuous. And I don't even know how they were doing it, like setting them up, because I'm looking over at it, and we're not far away. We're maybe only, I don't know, 100 feet away, and I could see the piles of boxes that they had lined up there. But if it must have been computer controlled, because they had different things going off in series, and it wasn't just random, because they were the same thing but from 2 different locations or 3 different locations, firing up and doing waves. And but that was all the amateur stuff. I don't know. It was amazing. That's my something cool. That was awesome.
Yeah, we had the Costco box that gave us a good half hour of enjoyment, and then we sat around in the cul-de-sac and watched everybody else with their Costco box, or what their stash they had. So we had a good hour of fireworks, and the occasional neighbors up the hill, people with more disposable income than I have, up the hill from where I live, who clearly drove to Washington and bought some things and returned them back.
Yeah.
Because they did not buy them in Oregon.
Yeah. Anyway, that's good fun, and happy 4th of July.
Call it a night.
Yep, let's call it a night. Oh, sorry, one more quick thing, which is that I am on vacation next week. I'm going camping, and there is literally no network in the campground. Well, the most part. You can kind of squint and hold your phone in a certain way, and maybe you might get a bar, and maybe you might get something. But so
we'll have. We're still going to do a show next week, and we'll have a guest host.
Very good.
We'll surprise you.
I will. Well, I expect I will listen to it, presuming I'm able to download it. That's okay. We get into town. It'll be fun.
Awesome.
All right.
Have a good one. Have a fun trip next week.
Thanks, Eric.
We'll
Good
see
night,
you, John. Bye.